Hi, and welcome back to A Strong Recommend. It's just the podcast where we talk about some things and maybe some more things after. I'm your host, Alex.
I'm your host, Dalton, and I agree.
Awesome. So today we're going to talk about the new movie, Mortal Kombat, in the year of 2021. And of all the things I'd not hear or think I'd hear was a Mortal Kombat movie in 2021. I don't I just wasn't expecting it.
Yeah, check out our thoughts on the 95 and 97 movies in the most recent episode of the podcast before this.
Yeah.
That we watched.
Look for Shao Kahn in the movie. You'll find him.
Oh, the actor? Wait.
In our thumbnail.
Oh, okay.
That's my favorite picture from the whole movie.
Okay.
From the old movie.
Okay. You were... I'm sorry. You just confused the ever-living hell out of me. You were still talking about how to find the previous episode. I thought, for some reason, it was a really weird way to introduce this tidbit, but I thought, for some reason, that you were informing me that, hey, did you know that the previous actor had a cameo shot in this movie? If you watch out for it, you'll notice it. And I'm like, I didn't notice it.
No. But before we get into, I actually have something I want to add to that. Well, it's not really a big spoiler or anything. I don't know if you noticed the amulet that one character stole, and Kitana's fans were in the background when they were sitting there in a particular spot.
No, I don't think I did notice. Okay, with that said,
yeah, we want to go ahead and start by saying this is a spoiler discussion. So if you haven't seen the movie, go ahead and watch it. It's on HBO Max right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they're streaming it for free until the 23rd of May.
Well, before we jump into the spoilers, though, let's answer the title of the show. Is it a strong recommend?
So something that I like to say we've implemented is not telling each other our initial feelings on the movie before we get to this actual discussion
about this at all.
Yeah. Let's put it this way. Okay. Hold up one hand, okay? 5 being a good movie, 1 being none. Not a good movie. That way we can get the quickest reaction and then talk about it so that we're not talking over each other.
This sounds like you also, well, all right, fine. Let's start with this and then elaborate on why we did that.
Okay, and we'll say the number out loud for the audio listeners.
Okay.
On go.
Mm-hmm.
1, 2, 3, go.
Oh
shit. I thought I was watching your hand, and I thought I was holding the right amount of fingers up too. It was 3 for the record. We both meant to put up 3. That was the dumbest thing I've ever done.
Which sounds like a good movie, but not a great movie.
Yeah.
So we're still, this early in our podcast series, we're still kind of figuring out as we go along what constitutes a strong recommend. And I believe when we discussed the 95 Mortal Kombat, the conclusion we came to was that it wasn't really a good movie, but we did want to call it a strong recommend for the historical significance of, even though it wasn't a good movie, it was really good at being a video game movie and just kind of believing in itself and having the confidence to do that. And
are you sure we were talking about the second movie there? Because the first movie is what we
I said 95.
You said 97, I thought.
Nope.
Oh, anyway.
But
97's a fucking joke.
so we called it a strong recommend, not because it's a great movie, everyone's gonna love it, but because there's historical significance to doing a video game movie and doing an okay job at it. So it was more of a, if you're into video games and if you're into Mortal Kombat, hey, go appreciate what they tried to do. And so in this case, I do think this is a better movie than the 95 version. I still don't know that I'm calling it great. I don't.
Can we start off by what they got right?
Well, I want to answer the overall question before we jump into spoilers.
Sure.
Is the thing. On the off chance that somebody watched this deciding whether to watch the movie or
Watch the
not.
movie, yeah.
But I guess where I'm feeling right now, I sound lukewarm, and I kind of am. But
Mm-hmm.
my expectations going into this were that it's going to be one of the better video game movies while still not really being a good movie, and that is exactly what I think I got here. So I feel like, to be fair, I have to call it a strong recommend because I think it's better than the 95 movie. However, it feels less historically significant to pull that off because the 95 movie already pulled off being an okay video game movie that believed in itself and had some confidence in what it's doing.
Yeah, the very first movie in 95, like, it didn't take itself seriously.
Mm-hmm.
But this movie still did things better than the newest movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for example, Shang Tsung inviting everybody to the Mortal Kombat tournament was a thing he did.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't given these birthmarks or these, like, brandings as, like, tickets into Mortal Kombat. I thought this was going to be a
Do you need to jump into spoilers to go where you're going?
No, not exactly. I thought the way this movie was going to be like a rational explanation of things instead of just calling them as they are.
You expected
like the entirety of the movie, like how in, like, Dragon Ball Evolution, like,
never
it couldn't
watched it.
just you never see okay no. Resident Evil,
okay,
they couldn't just call it what it is, you know what I mean? Like they couldn't just have a liquor be like an enemy that was evolved by the virus. It was, no, this has to be the big baddie of the whole movie.
Okay,
you know what I mean? Like they had to build up this actual insignificant character in the movie for it to be threatening. And that's where I thought they were going to go with this entire movie, just playing up a bunch of the bullshit that seems like it could work with throwing, like, terms from the video games on it. And to be fair, a lot of the time, like, it really feels like that. But as the movie goes on, they start to make it better. Like, for example, with Melina, I did not like the character design until a certain point in the movie. Or, for example, I didn't necessarily like Liu Kang until a certain point in the movie. Like that kind of thing. Like, it, I was genuinely, like, flipping off my TV and just saying, oh, this is bullshit. Why are they trying this? And then as the movie went on, I'm like, okay, I'll forgive this because they did this, what I would expect them to. You know?
So it sounds like you're getting a lot of hits and misses, which is my general feeling. And so before jumping into, no holds barred spoilers, going to talk about whatever we want, I guess I'm going to summarize my answer to the question, and I'm going to go with, it's a light recommend. So for the answer of the show, no, but for my real recommendation is, if you're a fan of Mortal Kombat, yeah, sure. It's not going to ruin your day. It's
absolutely not going to ruin your day by watching.
If you're not already a Mortal Kombat fan, I don't expect it to change your mind.
Valid. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It I couldn't really put it any better.
Okay, so with that said, we're going to jump into full-blown spoilers, talk about whatever we want, because we seem to be having a hard time not doing it. So there's your warning.
So you want to start off with actors? Because I feel like that's a good spot to start.
I honestly don't have anything really to say about any particular actors. Everyone came off to me, for the most part, most people came off to me as perfectly adequate, but, like, I'm not going to notice if they get recast in the next movie. Like, no one stuck at, like, I don't know. No one stood out to me as, like, this person's doing a bad job. There were characters I didn't like, but I thought of it more as a directorial or writing thing than the
Yeah,
actor
I
thing.
agree
There are
entirely.
standout actors, which, let's see, do I have the IMDb open? I'm gonna butcher these actors' names, so I don't honestly know if I want to do it, but I do really like Sub-Zero and Scorpion.
They were honestly the best ones in the whole
Mm-hmm.
movie.
Yeah.
Can I tell you my least favorite character in this whole movie?
Let's see if I have the same one. Go ahead.
On the count of three?
Sure. I can't illustrate this with my fingers, but
Okay, we'll just say it out loud on the count of three. 1, 2, 3. Kano. Yes. And it's not to his discredit, like
It's
Josh
not the
Lawson,
actor.
who, yeah, it's not him at all. It's a combination of the character design overall.
Sure.
Like, it would have made sense that in the fight with the reptilian monster, they couldn't just call him fucking reptile.
Yeah.
Or make him actually reptile. When he got like half of his face clawed off, that would have been the perfect time to introduce a metal plate.
Yeah, and there's a bit of sequel baiting here and there where I think they kind of want you to expect it to happen in the future, or like characters that aren't included here that will get there in the future. I saw, like, before I watched it, I saw a bunch of people on Twitter like complaining that they noticed Johnny Cage isn't in the movie. I'm like, there's supposed to be sequels. Why would they put everybody in this movie? Of course.
Right, exactly.
They're going to save some characters that people like. Although I'm also a little shocked to realize that Johnny Cage is apparently a fan favorite or someone worth being the major tease of the next movie. That was weird to me.
That's because of Mortal Kombat 10. Like, you don't know the story behind Mortal Kombat 10, but they made I'm gonna probably spoil a little bit of Mortal Kombat 10 for you. I don't give a shit, do you?
No.
Mortal Kombat 10 painted Johnny Cage as the main character.
Okay.
And they did a good job of painting him the main character because you finished 9.
Yes.
I'm not gonna feel bad for spoiling an over 10-year-old game.
I mean, I did finish it over 10 years ago, but
right. But remember, at the end of 9, Liu Kang was dead. Like, Raiden killed him. And I believe Kung Lao died in 9. So, who else are they going to cast as the main character? Because Liu Kang was often placed as, like, the main character of all of these characters because he's the chosen one that's supposed to save Earthrealm in the Mortal Kombat tournaments. I don't give a shit. Like, for one, like, Johnny Cage, yeah, sure, he's a big name, but like, they introduced Kung Lao for the first time ever in a movie and no one gave a shit.
Yeah, and like,
although badly, I will be honest, I didn't like how they put Kung Lao in this movie.
I wouldn't have killed him this movie. I just felt like it was underused. Like, I liked him, but I like Kung Lao a lot and didn't want him underutilized and killed off in this movie. They basically fridged him for Liu Kang, who is easy enough to make a main character without needing to do that for him.
Exactly. Like, I do like the approach that they're not making one character. Well...
Oh, we're getting heavily sidetracked about not liking Kano.
Yeah, about not liking Kano. It's mostly due to the comic or the costume design, and he wasn't.
His comedy's bad.
It's bad, and he's really bitchy for no reason. Kano was not bitchy in the games. He was just a thug. Like,
Kano, like, really, really heavily placed this franchise back into its 90s origin. Like, he is a 90s action character. Not that like he needs to be, but that's how they used him.
He aged like
And
Duke Nukem in this movie. Like,
yeah, and
it
the
only
shit
worked in the time.
talking is obnoxious and childish, and like they want him to be childish, but it's grating to me, the viewer. I did get a really good laugh out of him fighting Liu Kang, and he's like something like, "Oh, is that all you got?" And then he
Oh, and
like
he does the
jigs him, and
actual
he goes,
like
"Oh
jump.
shit," because he realizes what's happening before it happens. That did make me like cackle out loud. That was good, but that was the only time the character made me laugh.
Right. Yeah, like the beginning of the training where Liu Kang just kept low sweeping him.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was actually like some of the combat that they do, like you can notice is from like the classic style of
Yeah,
game.
yeah.
And it really shows, and it's a really nice note to leave some of the combat on.
Mm-hmm.
Because for this being a Mortal Kombat movie, I didn't feel there was nearly enough combat. But what
Hmm.
was there was fantastic.
I I have mixed feelings on the combat.
Right.
I don't quite want to go there yet, though.
Yeah,
Let's
we'll continue.
let's keep on like characters.
Uh Now I can embellish on Melina a little bit better of what I was saying.
Sure.
Because if you know what Melina looks like in the games, I can't remember if it's Tarkathian or just Tarkatian.
I don't recall.
But she's the same. Well, in lore, she's actually a clone of Princess Kitana,
Mm-hmm.
who's the same race as Baraka.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why her mouth is all screwed up,
Mm-hmm.
but they hide it with like a pink veil across her face.
Yeah.
And in this movie, it was a weird decision to not do like I don't care about the color coordination, but
Mm-hmm.
the reveal of her evil ass giant unhinged jaw
Mm-hmm.
kind of saved it.
Yeah.
But what really
So
pissed me off.
so you're saying it was weird that like they didn't cover it like we usually expect, but then it did
Mhm,
like open wider and show that like no, there's still something like more
right.
gruesome here that you're not usually seeing.
And then she gets killed 20 seconds later. You know what I mean?
And see, like she keeping in mind that like who my favorite characters are doesn't matter much because it's been ages
mhm,
since I've played this
yeah,
franchise. Like the last time I really played was 9, which came out over a decade ago, and I did play
right.
every game leading up to that, but it was forever ago, and most of them as they came out. Like so I played like Annihilation and Shaolin Monks and whatever, or not Annihilation, Armageddon. But
Mhm,
like I played all of these games like the month they came out and then never went back to them. So
right.
I don't have vivid like memories, or like I don't know the lore deeply, so it doesn't matter who I loved in the video games, but it was difficult for me knowing that this is planned to be 3 or 4 movies. I keep seeing inconsistencies on that matter.
I'm not sure.
I, on one hand, saw that like the director or writers said they were envisioning this as 3 movies, but then I've read that Sub-Zero's actors signed on for 4 movies. I don't know. Whatever
It
their
could be
game
that they're
plan
doing
is.
like how the games tried to do like Sub-Zero's own video game, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so maybe it's just in case they can do a side thing or whatever, which I think would be cool and worthwhile. Um, but what I was wondering, like heading into this, knowing they want it to be a franchise and not just one movie, is how
Mhm.
you handle in a franchise where the whole idea is gruesome death. You have to kill people.
Mhm.
How do you decide who to kill in the first movie? And it needs to happen throughout the movie too. And so I would see like Melina
Yeah.
die and see Kung Lao die, and like I didn't really care that they killed off Melina. She's not like a favorite of mine, but Kung Lao was always a favorite, and I see him die
Yeah.
and I get bummed. But then I'm like, they have to kill somebody. It's the whole premise of the franchise. But how? So like they get a loophole with like Scorpion, so that was obviously how the
Yeah.
movie was going to start, because that gives you a free death without throwing away a character. But then like do you just have to mostly kill side goons through this franchise?
Well, keep in mind at the end of this, Shang Tsung is still alive,
Mm-hmm.
and they have not introduced Quan Chi.
Mm-hmm.
Quan Chi being the reason that Scorpion is actually alive.
Yeah.
It's not because he pulled himself from the pits of hell. It's because Quan Chi seen an opportunity and took it
Mm-hmm.
when Scorpion dies and brings him back as a revenant.
Yeah.
And in fact, in the games, Kung Lao comes back as a revenant.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I could see that going pretty quickly that way. And honestly,
but in this
if they were
case, he had his soul sucked, so can he come back as a revenant?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
I don't remember the rules.
I'm pretty sure, because it's not. Shang Tsung draws his power from the Well of Souls,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not sure if like, because it gets really fucky sometimes, and because I mean, come on, it's you made a fighting game and then threw a storyline after.
And contradictions and
yeah, so like it's kind of hard to say if Kung Lao will come back. But it's possible for one, video game logic, and two, movie logic.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it could go either way.
Yeah.
But it's, I don't know, the characters overall, like the biggest thing that makes me mad is this feels like the first what was it, Days of Future Past with the younger Xavier who played the dude in Split, James McAvoy.
He's been in a number of those movies. That was one of them.
This gives me like the vibes of that movie, like the first movie, Days of Future Past.
First Class is this
first
one.
Class. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
It gives me those vibes, because they're giving all these characters an origin story again.
Yeah.
Which they don't necessarily need. Because let's face it, whoever isn't a Mortal Kombat fan at this point is not gonna go, oh, hey, Mortal Kombat, what's that? Let me watch this fucking movie.
Okay, so that's a good point. This whole approach where this movie doesn't feel like its own movie, it feels like build up to the Mortal Kombat movie. It's a really weird choice, considering I still don't think this did anything for you if you didn't already know Mortal Kombat. I think if you watched this and you're not already familiar, you left more confused than when you went in. So it's still really just for the fans. And if it's just for the fans, we don't need this backstory. You can skip right to the tournament and you can still go with, we didn't bring him up, but Cole, the original character to this movie, you can still use him in that way to make him our eyes into that universe.
Right. And this is why I tie in this point here with it being an origin story for everybody. Mm-hmm. I like, because we talked about this before several times in like video game movie reviews, where if they made a movie in the world of, and I think I actually mentioned this, or one of us mentioned this during a Mortal Kombat thing, where we said, what if they made a new character into the Mortal Kombat world? I think that would work.
Yeah.
And this works. But I don't give a shit about Cole.
They didn't pull that off for me.
They did not, no. And it's not to Louis Tan. I don't know exactly how to say his last name. I'm sorry if you're watching this, Mr. Cole Young.
We should make sure for future reference that when we review something heavy on Asian cast members, we look up the pronunciations in advance.
But he's a good actor. Like every choreographed, whatever the fuck, either way, every fight scene was believable. His acting was believable in a relatable sense in a lot of ways. But they were trying to give him sympathy points by having a wife and a daughter, and I wasn't buying it. Like, that he was a good fighter who got down in the dumps. It could have been due to something that happened to him. Why not explain what happened to him? Instead of just making his whole reason being there is because he's part of the Shirai Ryu bloodline.
Yeah.
Like,
and do I care about this bloodline thing if they're gonna like bring Scorpion back anyway?
Right.
Do I care that he's the descendant of a character who's not really gone?
Right.
It's also weird that like if you're a regular moviegoer, not a fan of the franchise,
Right.
and this is your first exposure. Do you even know that Cole is the main character?
Yeah, because I mean, you start off with the first scene sort of setting up precedents of what this movie's about to be, and you see one person survive from that whole thing who's a baby.
Mm-hmm.
Which we didn't even talk about Raiden, but it doesn't really matter because Raiden got maybe 5 minutes of screen time. Um,
Yeah, but what
so
I mean, watching this, you get the sense, sure, that like Sub-Zero versus Scorpion is a big deal, and you are
mhm,
told that this is Scorpion's descendant, but at the same time, Sub-Zero's here to take out everybody, really, like not just the Scorpion
yeah,
bloodline. Like
but it's
it,
important to him that it's gone.
it is, but I guess I'm talking like in terms of like screen time and importance to what is going on right this second. Like all Cole did was be a descendant. Like
Yeah,
if I don't, like from my perspective, I know that we're supposed to think of him as the main character because he's the only original character on this team of characters we're familiar with. And so, okay, there's a purpose to introducing this new guy and putting
yeah,
him on the level with everyone else. And this must be our point of view introduction to the universe, main character, like trope. Like it's a trope.
yeah, yeah,
But if I don't know he's an original character, he doesn't really have any more screen time than anyone else, or a more interesting story, or a more significant, like, I don't know. I guess he
Arcana.
has a bit more of a tie to the main antagonist, but
Yeah,
the main antagonist is here to kill everybody, and he's here
yeah,
for more than this, like, bloodline thing. He does want Scorpion's bloodline gone, but he also wants Outworld to defeat the Earth. Like, there's more going on here than just that.
yeah, yeah, exactly. I
So I guess I'm saying, like, either actually make him the main character, or why
right.
bother with the new guy?
I
He,
feel like he's the main character because like we're just introduced to these characters who are already established, and then a bunch of shit happens, and then you see the title card,
Mhm.
and then you're introduced to present day.
Mhm.
Like, because I don't necessarily think that like immediately it being Hanzo versus Bihan, um, like I don't see that like taking up the main precedent of the story just yet. Even though as a Mortal Kombat fan, I kind of know.
Mhm.
But it's mostly because like each character that Cole meets seems like they are way more experienced in the fuckery that is afoot.
Yeah.
You know, so that makes sense to me that like he's the main character, he's new to this, he doesn't understand what's going on, and he's sort of playing the role of us trying to learn how the world works.
Hmm.
And in that sort of narration, it works really well. But even though these people are experienced and knowledgeable and everything else that's going on in the movie, it still feels like an origin story for them too.
Mhm.
And that's what's really frustrating me.
Yeah, it's an origin story for all of them, and that like a
Yeah.
bunch of them
So I see where
don't
you're coming
have
from.
their power before this movie, or I think
Oh, I absolutely want to talk about their powers
or like,
once
correct
we go
me if
off of
I'm
this tangent.
wrong, but like before the actual like assembling people together, if I recall correctly, a bunch of characters like kind of heard myths and stories about Outworld and these other dimensions and these worlds, but like didn't know it. Like it's like a folklore, and they vaguely heard of these things, but now they're seeing that it's real. So they're not really
Yeah.
experienced with the stuff. They just like kind of heard about it before.
Well, according to Sonya Blade, she's been following it her entire life or
Hmm.
years and years of research.
Hmm.
Um, but I don't know, like this whole it feels like the movie is limiting it itself with like the like I said, the birthmarks or the invitations to Mortal Kombat.
Hmm.
Because like if you follow the story, Kano and Sonya Blade actually hate each other all the time, like
Mhm.
Scorpion and Sub-Zero. So why not just make her an agent that's been following him, who's been following the trail of Mortal Kombat, learning about it, and he's trying to enter in so that way he can get more money and fame or whatever. Instead of having to kill him for her to be able to enter Mortal Kombat, when Mortal Kombat... Here's the biggest thing we didn't even talk about. Mortal Kombat doesn't even fucking happen in this movie.
Well, yeah, this is all a prequel to the actual Mortal Kombat movie, and it doesn't have a story on its own.
Yeah, why did I not think about that until just now? Jesus. Anyway, it limits itself in the regards that if you're a fan, you might know. If you are a big fan, you'll know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
For the most part, you'll know what's going on. I just don't understand this invitation system to you gotta pay to play sort of aspect to Mortal Kombat. What also really made me angry was the Arcana.
Go on.
I need a second.
Okay.
I need a second. Because it's so fucking dumb. It's the same thing that they did in, like, Dragon Ball Evolution, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Where, oh, I'm just some teenager. My name is Goku. My best friend over here in high school's name is Jimmy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the fuck, you know? It just feels so out of place. Like, you're already giving us this big world.
Mm-hmm.
Who's to say that the inner workings of, you know, human energy or magic doesn't already fucking exist in this world?
Mm-hmm.
Just make it magic.
Yeah.
Like, in this instance, it doesn't matter because in the games, they're not explained how they have their superpowers. It's just magic or ki or whatever.
Exactly. So this weird thing where we made it an origin where we need to explain people's power sets.
Yeah.
I don't care. I don't need it.
Yeah, seriously.
Get it out of here. I never
if they were
asked,
turning into a Super Saiyan, that's fine.
I never asked this question in the games, and if the games ever explained anything about it for anyone, I don't remember it. But I don't need a reason for Kano's eye laser or whatever Johnny Cage's deal is with his green visual effects, or like
it's green screen power.
It's just there. I don't care. Like, they didn't have to explain Sub-Zero's power. Don't explain it for anyone else. I don't care.
Right.
It's Mortal Kombat. People have magic powers. End of story. Like, it's fine.
On that same note, why this feels more and more like an origin story is because Liu Kang shot a fireball the first time we seen him, and that was his whole personality for the whole movie. Is that he could use fire from his hands. That was his whole personality in the movie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it was just there's a lot of shit in this movie that, like, frustrates me, but it does justify itself in the regards that whatever combat was there was actually loyal to what happened, as well as fatalities even. But we'll get to that here in a minute.
Okay, well, we've rambled on characters, so if we want to get into the combat, because this is Mortal Kombat.
Fine. Yeah.
Okay, you seem to have a bit of higher praise for it than I do, and I have mixed feelings for how they approached, like, the action of this movie, in that on one hand, like, I think it did do Mortal Kombat very well.
Yeah.
Like, they didn't hold back on being as ridiculous as Mortal Kombat can be, and as, like, gruesome and gory. Like, they really committed to it and got, like, creative with it. Like a big appeal to the franchise is booting up a new game and seeing, like, what new ridiculous ways they came up with for people to abuse their powers.
Yeah.
So beyond, like, freezing your blood into a blood sickle to stab you again with your own blood, like that kind of stuff. Like, that was pulled off really well, and, like, you do see characters, like, imitating the way they fight in the games.
Arms are gone. Arms is His
Mhm.
arms is
Oh,
gone.
I didn't mention how fucking scary his teeny baby arms were until they became the full-grown arms for no reason.
And why can't they just
Horrific.
be science? The monks built him robot arms in a temple.
Why did it magic some robot arms into better robot arms?
Right.
They're already robot
That's not
arms.
his
Just let them be
superpower.
that.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Oh my god, we were still talking about characters.
Oh, but like anyway, like the combat being respectful to not just like the gore, but like that you see characters doing things that reflect the
Yeah.
way they fight in the game. Like that's done well.
Oh, absolutely.
However, from an actual like choreography standpoint, like in terms of like editing and framing shots and pacing and that kind of thing, like the characters show through in their combat and the tone of Mortal Kombat shines through in the combat, but
Yeah.
there's also heavy cuts and shaky cam all over the place, and it's not a lot of the fight sequences just aren't all that actually like coherent to watch, which is a sensation I've been getting out of a lot of American action movies for like my entire life. Like if you I don't remember who it was. Maybe it was Every Frame a Painting, some YouTube channel. I'm thinking that's the one. I don't remember. Someone did like a really in-depth like fight choreography like comparison video of like the average American action film compared to, I think he was specifically showing like Jackie Chan films.
Yeah.
And the thing they focused on was that like a Jackie Chan film will do like 60 seconds of fighting in a single take, and they
Yeah.
will make sure that you can visually follow every step of the way. But then an American movie action sequence will cut every other strike, maybe every single punch, and the camera jumps to a completely different angle behind another character every time, and you can't actually fluidly follow any, like, you can't fluidly follow the detail of the fight. You can't trust that the actors or stunt doubles actually did anything skillful because the camera jumped around too much.
Right,
So,
right. I'll give you that. As far as like
I have an exception for the final Sub-Zero and Scorpion fight where it's not like one big long take, but it's very coherent with a lot of creative things
yeah,
happening.
absolutely. I see this is you're definitely going from like a more cinematic standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going more for like a as it's played out
Mm-hmm.
through the movie. So you're more noticing like the camera angles and the jump cuts, whereas
So it's like they're
I'm
doing Mortal
noticing everything
Kombat
that's
well.
yeah.
Yeah, they're doing
Hmm.
Mortal Kombat well, but I also wish that like for a franchise with combat in the name,
Yeah,
like hire the best you can find.
yeah,
Like I don't know, just look at some movies that have the reputation for the best like hand-to-hand combat sequences and just grab their directors or choreographers, and they're, I don't know, maybe you can even get stunt doubles from those movies. I don't know how much of
Jackie Chan has his own like stunt crew,
yeah.
and they are crazy.
Yeah, and I guess I'm accidentally demeaning like stunt actors that work for American films. I don't know if they're any better or worse than those in
Mhm.
like the Asian market. I just know that if they are as good, the editing does them dirty. and
Yeah, yeah.
and
So this
so
is maybe more of like a director's standpoint or a like this could be like a direction's fault or like camera's fault somewhere around there.
yeah, so I'm not trying to put any of it on the stunt actors, but
Yeah.
go to like the Raid. I don't know if you've ever seen the Raid movies, but those are an example of like modern uh Asian action movies that are done ludicrously well with long shots and creativity and things where you can actually see what is happening. And I don't know how much of it is due to like a more impressive than average stunt crew, or how much of it is a choreographer, or how much of it is a director. But whoever's doing it is maybe, well, it probably requires everyone to be excellent, but whoever it is that's responsible for all of that being as good as it is, like, get those guys or somebody on their level. And I don't know, just set a higher standard. I don't know.
I think that's a good place to leave it, is just setting it at a higher standard. I feel like you're like snowballing yourself here with trying to find the right words, and you just keep going.
Yeah, I'm getting in circles trying to, without being like overly rude towards American filmmakers, but
study the direction of other combat movies that did well that aren't video game combat movies or action movies starring Jason Statham.
Yeah, I love my big budget, dumb American action movies, my superhero movies, and like, I don't know, this is basically a superhero movie. Like I don't know, I love this stuff, but the weak point is filming hand-to-hand combat. And it's a problem on the whole industry, not this movie in particular. So I'm not even saying this movie does worse than average. Like, it's just as good as, I don't know, I like most MCU movies. It pulls it off as well as most of those do.
Yeah, and this is more of a general standpoint that's not necessarily like pertaining to this movie. I think this is,
I just want Mortal Kombat to be the best at it.
right, exactly. And I see what you're saying. Yeah, if they could do a couple of different approaches to the combat, and it's still just as good, because the style did work for the Mortal Kombat movie. I'm not going to complain about it per se, but I see where you're going. A different other traditional style could have worked here even. However, I don't think the CGI and effects may have worked better that way.
If that more traditional shooting style makes it more difficult to implement.
Right. CGI because if you're shooting like a full minute, you have to animate that whole minute versus like a 10-second shot.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the impact of that is on being CGI heavy. I have no complaints about the CGI. Most of the CGI looks great.
It looks really good. Most of my complaints are just minor nitpicks, like I said, like Melina dying. All of a sudden, like, well, here's a good one. It took Kano screaming and crying like a big bitch, not even like Kano, to shoot a laser beam out of his eye. It took Cole fighting fucking Goro to get his power, his arcana. And all it took for Sonya was to kill Kano. Are you kidding me?
You know what? I didn't think about Goro. Goro in this movie was a mistake.
Yeah. They could have used Kintaro or Shiva.
Yes, exactly. Because there is a list of characters in Mortal Kombat that are basically like the much larger than usual brutes that serve as sometimes final bosses, sometimes a mini boss before Shao Kahn. But basically the really big baddies, and Goro's the first one you think of, if only because he's been in a movie before.
He's been in almost every game.
Build up to him.
Yeah, seriously. Like,
don't put him in here just to prove that the new guy can beat him. That just made him look silly.
Right, exactly.
Also, his effects are bad. That's my only... That's the only place that jumped out to me as bad visual effects. I thought Goro looked bad. I mean, obviously a million times better than he looked in the 90s. But I wasn't buying it. His death looked surprisingly good.
In this movie, yeah, it was actually pretty decent.
His alive looked pretty bad.
So I'd like to focus a little more on the Arcana stuff
Sure.
because it's fucking stupid. It's genuinely just stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, Kano crying and screaming about being called weak by somebody he's known for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Grants him the power to shoot a laser beam out of his eye.
Yeah, so there's just not any kind of consistency to what justifies being
it's not
granted
even that.
this
Like,
power.
I know I'm going to go back in a big circle here, but why can't they just have these powers in the beginning? Unlike Kano, like Kano would have been the perfect reason to not have it this way. Because like I said, because none of the movies can get Reptile right. Him getting half his face ripped off, why didn't the thing just spit in his eye? And then while he was at the Shaolin Temple, because clearly they built Jax these baby arms from like nothing in a temple made out of sand. What tells me that they couldn't have a metal plate that had like a thing that could shoot a laser beam out of it? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay.
Like,
so if you work for this studio when the general idea is being pitched, maybe there's already a script, maybe you just read the script and you saw everything wrong with it that you're seeing right now. Pitch your version of it. Pitch your, okay, I see what you're trying to do. Instead, do this. Keeping in mind that you know there's going to be 3 or 4 movies.
My first words. 6 words. You don't have to explain shit. You don't. You just don't. Okay? The games are a mix of magic and science. Okay? Where you got Liu Kang and Kung Lao at the Temple of Light. You've got Quan Chi in his sorcerer's lab. And you've got Sonya, who has the entire backing of the science of the U.S. government. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, one is inner peace and energy. The other one is alchemy. And the other one is just plain science.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to explain how they get these arcana powers. Like, I feel like that's just stupid. Like you barely explained Cabal.
Yeah.
Like, Cabal's in this movie, and like it's because
they knew they didn't have to explain them, and that explain him, and that was fine. I thought he was a highlight. Why? Because I thought he looked badass, and not that I could see the actor, but like I thought he was being acted well, and he looked cool, and that's what I wanted. Like, end of story. We're done.
Yeah, like you know, the tie between Cabal and Kano, like that was the perfect way to do it. Like, was there some guy there who's just just an asshole and thinks he's the best? Like, he was just talking shit on Kano, and he's like, yeah, he's your way in. You know what I mean? Like, just promise him money, you're good. You know what I mean?
So if I'm in the studio and I read this script and I'm telling them, here comes your heavy revision based on what I'm about to say, what I'm about to say is basically that we don't have to explain stuff. And what that changes about the movie is, you know, I looked at their script and I see, oh, you want to make Sub-Zero the big baddie. We knew that from the trailers. We kind of got that vibe.
That works.
It's Sub-Zero coming to Earth Realm and trying to wipe out a large amount of fighters. And they can even keep the same
before
reason
Mortal
why.
Kombat, that's fair.
It's trickery to try to basically screw Earth Realm out of the upcoming Mortal Kombat. I don't even care that there's not a Mortal Kombat until the second movie. That's fine. A ton of Mortal Kombat games don't have a Mortal Kombat tournament.
They usually, well, the last ones, like 9, 10, and 11 started because of the tournament in 9.
Right. So, with that in mind, I don't even care that it's pushed off to the second one. And I like this idea of Sub-Zero being like the main baddie, making him like like not like a horror villain, but like scary, like menacing, like this is a force to be reckoned with. Like he and his powers are done really well.
And his costume.
Yeah. Oh, him
Although
and
the distinct lack of blue.
yeah. Oh, I did really like the touch at the end where his armor's removed and then he resembles Noob Saibot more. That's cool.
Yeah, yeah,
Um
that was really cool. I also really liked I don't know if you caught this,
mhm,
but in the first fight in the beginning of the movie when Hanzo has the knife and the rope
mhm,
and he first throws it, it cuts Bihan's
mhm,
face. The second time he throws it, it misses because
mm,
he ducks his head to the side and he goes into the
yeah.
wall.
Oh,
I
nice.
thought that was really cool.
Yeah, but so getting sidetracked there, that is going to relate to another point I completely skipped over, like the worst thing about the movie. But uh, I like that general approach. But if they realize that they don't have to explain anybody, these characters can just already know that the tournament's coming soon,
Right.
and Sub-Zero can be here to come after them. Now we can dedicate the whole movie to Sub-Zero being a scary force to be reckoned with.
Yeah.
And you can find reasons here and there for other pairs to fight up. It can't, like, to pair up and fight. It can't be everyone against Sub-Zero the whole movie. But you can just truly make him, like, kind of like Infinity War, where, like, Thanos is the bad guy, but he's the main character in terms of he gets way more screen time than anybody. You just
Valid.
flood
Okay.
this movie with Sub-Zero screen time because he's after everybody and everybody's scared of him, and you just keep finding excuses to show off how powerful he is. And then at the end, you can still kill off Bihan. And then I don't remember the next Sub-Zero's name, but when they
It's his
introduce
brother. Yeah.
uh, but when they introduce and really use his brother, and like there's an ongoing conflict between him and Hanzo, like we'll already have the precedent of how scary and dangerous the Lin Kuei are,
Exactly.
and then
Yeah.
we just build up to making him a big baddie in a later movie, like one of the final movies. Just
Mhm.
build up that character later with already having this precedent of how scary they are. So they
Right.
so like
And
I'm
then as
fine with
Bihan
most
is
of
Smoke,
yeah.
like you're not losing that character.
Mhm.
You're gaining a new one, you know?
Yeah, and so like I like a lot of the approach. I really like what
Yeah.
they did with Sub-Zero, but just cut out all of the other explanations and origins and just
Yeah.
keep fleshing out that idea. Do more with it.
Right. Exactly. Like I'm going to tell you right now from what I've seen, I definitely know they're going to bring in 3 characters.
Mhm.
Quan Chi,
Mhm.
because they're going to realize that killing off some of these characters was a mistake. They're going to introduce Katana,
Mhm. Johnny
and
Cage.
they're obviously Johnny Cage. But the reason that I say Quan Chi is because in Raiden's temple, he grabs that amulet, and I'm pretty
Hmm.
sure that was either Shinnok's amulet or Quan Chi's amulet that he wore in Deadly Alliance.
Hmm.
So like they're nodding to that. I they made a nod to Nightwolf in like a brief like jump cut
Hmm. I
when
don't
they
think
were
I
showing
noticed.
Sonya's research.
Mhm.
They had a little portrait of Nightwolf.
Ah.
I really hope they don't bring Nightwolf into this.
Oh. Not a fan?
There's something there's something about his original character design that just kind of feels racist. Um
Uh, hmm. It would be a tough line to, yeah, because I was about to say they almost certainly would because they would want to
yeah.
take advantage of that opportunity
Damn it.
to include a Native American actor, and I mean that in a good way. Like I'm not criticizing woke culture. I think it's awesome to take advantage of
Yeah.
those opportunities. But then, oh, you do have to juggle like, oh, how do we bring in this character
Exactly.
and make it respectful and not offensive?
Right.
I guess you just involve people of Native American communities and get their input throughout the process.
Yeah, that's true.
I guess.
But like other characters that would be interesting, I had to look up his name. Kenshi, the blind swordsman. Like he would be cooler to see. Or was his name Cobra? He looks like Ken. But he would be cool to see. I can't remember his name. There's so many different over the years.
I should also clarify that because I just mentioned the possibility that they would really want to include a Native American character just because the opportunity's right there and it's nice to see. Want to acknowledge real quickly that I realize Native American characters are currently very rare in American media. I don't mean that it's common for a studio to do that. I mean, this is a movie that's already heavy, rightfully so, on Asian actors. And so I assume the people behind this would, there's a precedent already here in this movie that they would want to do that right.
Yeah. But I'm interested to see, like, because like there's the option of Sub-Zero's brother or Frost, or like I said, Kenshi, Bo Raicho. They did drop his name in the movie.
Not a fan, but
I'm not a fan of how they put Bo Raicho in the movie. Yeah. But like there's so many characters, and like the movies tend to like stick to like a select handful. And I'm really hoping that they're not doing that. And I'm really hoping that this lizard monster was not supposed to be Reptile, because Reptile would actually be a good character to incorporate.
If that thing was supposed to be Reptile, it was terrible.
Thank you.
Mortal Kombat has a huge list of characters to choose from, and I don't know. I get what you're saying.
Striker?
Use as many of them as you can, because
they'd all die. Like they're all gonna get killed.
Well, yeah, so there's that. You need to kill a bunch of characters, so you need to bring in a lot of characters. At the same time, it's inherently really difficult in the span of a movie or even a few movies to tell good stories where this many characters are made meaningful, or that you're made to care about them. So like
there is something interesting that I forgot to point out. They did not once mention Shao Kahn, but they mentioned Kotal Kahn.
Oh.
The bronze bust that they had in that same scene I'm talking about with Nightwolf, that was Kotal Kahn.
Oh, okay. I barely remember that character, to be honest, but
he was an MK11? 10.
Okay, that explains me not really knowing him, but I guess your point there is to note that they didn't take the obvious route, so they might have some interesting ideas of where this is going, not quite doing the obvious thing all the time.
Do you know about Shao Kahn in 10?
No.
Well, actually, no. He would have been dead in 9.
No,
at the end of 9, the Elder Gods killed him.
Yeah. Anyway, it's difficult to do this many characters well, and that's part of the praise that like Infinity War and Endgame get, at least from me, is juggling a story that uses that many characters well, but they also pull it off so well with the help of having 20-ish movies in front of them that built that up.
That's true. But I mean, you got to remember that like not every character is from Earthrealm. And it only seems to be the focus of every movie is that it's Earthrealm versus Outworld.
Sure.
When there's Netherrealm, Edenia, there's
Sure, and we could have got to these other places faster if we didn't have to origin story.
And I'm pretty sure there's 7 realms.
Because these origin stories didn't do anything to help me care more about these characters.
Right, like it makes sense that Katana or Sindel aren't in this one because they're from Edenia.
And so we can get to Edenia faster if you don't origin all these people. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Like, I don't care why Kano has a laser eye.
Right. And I don't care about this whole Arcana business, because didn't they also say that they wouldn't get those powers unless they trained there, but yet Sonya totally got her powers outside of that area?
I don't recall. A note earlier, I'm going to sidetrack now because I feel like we're in a better spot, but I almost got sidetracked with it earlier. When I was talking about kind of the social aspects of how to include Nightwolf, because he's a character that's real easy to be offensive with.
Yeah.
That got my brain going in another direction about something like, a social issue. It's not even necessarily something they tackled on purpose, just something they did differently that I appreciated from what we know of Mortal Kombat. They did not sexualize the women at all.
Yes.
And thank God.
Yeah, that's absolutely a plus in my book, because I can honestly not think of a time that they weren't, especially with 97 Annihilation.
Mm-hmm.
Like they just went everywhere with the nipples. It was so bad.
And like the game franchise itself, especially like it's unfortunately, I don't know, it's unfortunately a thing that Mortal Kombat as a whole is known for. And then when they started to get better about it, maybe do it to fewer female characters, make it less ridiculous when they do it. Because I'm not even saying you can't do it at all. The problem comes from it being every female
single
character in many video games, particularly fighting games.
Yeah.
But they didn't do it to anyone here.
Yeah. I completely agree with that.
And so when the Mortal Kombat games recently started like turning around and doing that better, like not getting rid of it completely, but doing it to fewer characters, making it less ridiculous when they do it, they've gotten a lot of backlash for it. Like I remember like seeing like, reveals, like it's been a while since we've had a new game recently, but as of I think the last two games, whenever they're starting to market them and they're not quite out yet, they would, do their character reveals. Here's what this character is going to look like in this game. They kept revealing not even like not sexualized character models, but like less sexualized character models. And then a bunch of whiny misogynist gamers just got pissed and like lost their shit on the internet over it. The same thing we saw with Tifa for the Final Fantasy VII remake. Like, she's wearing slightly more clothes. Like, time for gamer rage.
Yeah, that's garbage. So
kudos for not considering that a vital, necessary
absolutely.
part of the franchise and choosing to ignore it completely.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, that was a good move. Music. Did you notice towards the end they had this like anthem that was like a remix of the original the movie Mortal Kombat theme?
I noticed them refer to it more than once.
Yeah.
There might have been like at least 3 or 4 occasions. Hell, it might have happened all the time and I just didn't always notice, because at least one time I noticed at the last second and I went, oh wait, did they just...
I noticed it in the Sonya versus Kano fight.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, excuse me.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly where I noticed, but on at least like 3 occasions, and a full-blown like remade version of the song has been out for a while that we knew about. They did, of course, have to reference the song. They just had to. I didn't really want them to do it through the whole movie. I want the movie to have its own identity, but I know you need to acknowledge it at least once. So, fine.
I gotta cut you off and explain what just happened. I took a drink, and when you take a drink, and it goes down and then comes back up and like gets stuck in like the spiral. It got stuck and wouldn't move, and I could feel my throat expanding, and I'm like, oh.
I was hoping that if I kept talking long enough, we wouldn't have to explain to audio listeners that something was happening there.
Oh my god. Yeah, and then the video listeners are going to be like, what's happening to him? Is he having a stroke? Like, this movie stressed him out that bad?
Yeah. But given that I noticed it more than once, and within the movie itself, because I don't think the movie really needed to do it like during the movie. I think it could have just been the revamped version of the song during the credits.
Yeah.
I don't think it needed to happen more than once.
No.
Don't ride the coattails of the previous one too much. Like, let it be its own thing. For the most part, I think it managed to be its own thing. It didn't tell the same story as the original. The music was still good.
Yeah, I mean, from what I remember of it, I didn't have really any complaints, but like, I'm not gonna go looking for the soundtrack.
No, exactly that. It did the job. I'm not gonna go look up the soundtrack and listen to it. It is a bit of a bummer for the soundtrack to not like totally knock it out of the park, though, because boy, that 95 soundtrack is a big deal. Yeah. I know that today people really just know the main theme, but like that CD, like it sold big. Like,
oh yeah,
it broke some kind of big record for being like the first movie soundtrack to sell some number of copies. Like, it was a really big deal, and this one,
I had no idea.
It should have. I don't know. It's not bad in any way, but boy, did it have a lot to live up to.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really have anything else to say about it. The soundtrack's fine. Could have referenced the original less, but it's fine.
Yeah. I really only have like one last question, and I'd really like to ask you.
Oh, I do recall it doing a decent job at like being appropriate to different settings, because like during the opening scene that took place whatever 100 years ago, like I don't know, 300-ish years ago, during that opening sequence,
3 centuries, yeah,
which unfortunately that opening sequence is like my favorite part of the movie until like I guess the final fight scene.
That final fight scene was so good though.
Yeah. Unfortunately most of it was already on the internet as like a preview of the movie, so I had already seen most of it.
Oh, see, this is why I avoid trailers in anything involving the actual film itself, unless it's like a 2-second like, hey, this movie premieres in 1 day, go watch it.
Yeah, there was at least like 2 whole minutes of that fight scene in some promotional material, so I had already seen a lot of it. But like that opening sequence, if I recall, had like a score that like suited that era a lot more appropriately than it would the modern area. Like it adjusted to fit what it needed to do nicely.
Yeah, valid.
But it's not like I have any melodies from the soundtrack in my head now, or like I'm gonna go tell people the soundtrack is a reason to watch it. It's adequate.
That's fair. So I'm kind of done mostly talking about the movie itself. For fear of going back in more circles about the Arcana and this other bullshit that they added in. Despite all that, I do really like what they did. It was a nice twist. It was sort of refreshing to see a new character. Although they didn't do it very well, in my opinion. But since you said I didn't realize that there were going to be like 3 to 4 movies potentially. If you had to pick 3 characters that had to be in the movies, I don't care if it's the next movie or the movie after, what characters would you like to see in the movies?
Most of my nostalgia is for Mortal Kombat 4.
Okay.
So I need Quan Chi and Shinnok and Fujin.
Okay. I could see that working pretty well because like Raiden's already an established character in the movies. I think it would be cool to see some weird ones like Rain.
Oh yeah, give me more color-coded ninjas.
Right, yeah. Ironically, he's the purple ninja because he's based off of Prince.
I get it.
Yeah. Did you not know that?
At that time at that point in my childhood, I wouldn't have known who Prince was.
Well, yeah,
now it feels obvious.
Yeah. Ermac would be kind of cool to see in these movies because like For one, both of those characters are going to be really CGI heavy, but like I can see both of them having really good fight scenes in movies.
Get us Cyrax and Sector and Smoke. Like,
yeah,
there's just so much to work with, and Mortal Kombat has such a like variety of different. Well, it's funny to say variety when I'm saying give me all the many color-coded ninjas and the many color-coded robots, but those are like sectional like categories of a very wide scope of different kinds of characters.
Right.
And there's a lot to work with.
But like I would also like Noob Saibot. Or Noob and Smoke as a team.
Yeah.
Like those three would be super sweet to see. Like I'm gonna pick on your answer for Shinnok. Like an Elder God.
My lore and characters is pretty rusty. When I said earlier that Bihan was supposed to resemble Noob Saibot, is that more like Smoke he was supposed to resemble, really? At the end of the movie? Okay.
Yeah. Noob Saibot is one of the creators' names backwards, Tobias Boone. Just a little.
I didn't remember which character. I didn't remember which character was actually future Bihan.
I think it is Smoke.
Okay.
Because Noob Saibot is.
To me, they're both just the Black Ninjas, and sometimes Smoke is one of the robot characters. Sometimes he's a Black Ninja, sometimes he's a robot character.
Because I think in 10 he was actually a physical human, like he was an actual human. Is it Saibot? Oh my god, this is gonna kill me now. I can't. You're throwing me off. Oh man, but either way, like both of them would be sweet.
Yeah.
Because if they're in a team tandem together, it'd still be dope. I honestly, I kind of say to stay away from Sector and Cyrax for fear of what they would do with these Arcana things. Because, like, are they both, like, in real life just, like, these two sciencey nerds that also like fighting? And then once they get their powers, they turn into fucking robots? Is that what they would do?
Well, no, we have the precedent already that Jax is already partially cyborg, and then his Arcana is to become more cyborg. Not even more cyborg, it's still his arms, just bigger cyborg.
Ridiculous.
Jax, superpower, bigger metal arms.
God. I'm excited for sequels.
I'm so glad, by the way, that Cole's power wasn't turning into Scorpion. I was so afraid that was the route they were going to go.
I saw some people suggest they would have preferred that.
No.
I saw people suggest they would have...
I think his powers are weird, but whatever.
Yeah, I saw people suggest they would have preferred Hanzo not come back at the end of the movie, and that Cole's powers just resemble his powers at the end.
Yeah, I was afraid they were going to give him the get over here knife. And
oh man, the fire breath was done so cool though.
Yes, it was. When he pulls off the mask and it's half a skull underneath, like that was so good.
Yeah, with the idea being that like it's melting melting his head as he's doing it. That was super cool. And like
and then it healed back, and then he took a mask back off.
Yeah, and we said the effects were good all around, but minus Goro, but also the touch of like Sub-Zero makes himself bleed too. I think it was mostly obvious earlier on in the movie when they were first like introducing him, and they would really close up on his powers, but like he would start to use ice powers, and you would see blood under the ice.
Yeah, because he was freezing his skin and cracking it into pieces and shit. Yeah. Like it's like they did little details like that so well, but the big cuts and swoops that they did, man, they shouldn't have done some of them. Man, I'm just Shinnok, man, really? Why Shinnok? You know he's gonna be a part of it.
Mortal Kombat 4 is my one that I played over and over again for hundreds of hours for years, and then every game afterwards I rented from Hollywood Video for a week when they came out.
You would probably like Mortal Kombat 11 then, because Shinnok is in it.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, that's when they introduced, they reintroduced Shinnok, and then they introduced Kotal Khan. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was 10.
Anyway,
Ugh.
oh, I mentioned earlier the worst thing about the movie. It just wasn't the right place to bring it up. Some of the video game references are incredibly well done. However, some of them are the most forced, awful bullshit I've ever seen. Kano wins. Or flawless victory.
I'll give a pass to
fatality
one.
for Kung Lao.
Yeah, the fatality for Kung Lao hurt. Flawless victory seems fine because it feels like a brag. But Kano wins. I just don't like Kano. I don't think I like Kano in this movie. Other than the fact that I look like a fat version of him. I mean,
I don't remember if there were any more examples than those three, but all three of them, my eyes rolled out of my head and now I can't see.
I really like how they handled the animality in this movie.
Oh yeah. Much better than the previous attempt.
Yeah. Much better than our thumbnailed version of the previous podcast episode you should go listen to as well.
But like we don't rate out of like 5 stars or 10 points on this show, but if we did, those 3 moments are so awful for me, like they would have deducted like countable points. Like a whole star off out of 5 for those 3 moments. It was so forced.
Realistically, I'd give this one anywhere between 3.2 to 3.5 stars. One whole star being knocked off for the shitty dialogue.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so when I used to put ratings on things I talked about on the internet, by a blog nobody read and by a Letterboxd account nobody looked at,
and you tried to force me to read it, and I said no.
I didn't go down to the level of like 0.2. I usually went down to 0.5s. I would have to call this a 3 out of 5. Not that we do that here, but
yeah,
I think
I don't think you'll regret watching this movie. You would regret watching Annihilation.
This movie didn't wow me, but I think it has a lot of potential to do better in the sequels.
If they could have like amnesia and forget about the invitation system, because they're nerfing the amount of characters they can bring into the next movie.
I guess, but how many of the characters we want in the next movie would really be from Earth? I mean, they could arbitrarily say anybody got the invite from any other realm.
From Earth realm, it would be Stryker, Johnny Cage. Nightwolf isn't part of Earth realm, I don't think.
I don't know for sure.
Bo Raicho would be Earth realm.
Mm-hmm. Okay, anyway, besides the point, trying to close up here, I think this does have a lot of potential to be better in future installments, and that they just kind of screwed up not letting this movie be enough of its own thing.
Yeah.
So I'm relieved we have, like, I don't know, I guess that's it. I'm excited to have more, even though this didn't blow me away. And if it were to not get a sequel, because writers planning a sequel, but they haven't come out and greenlit that and said it's definitely happening.
Yeah,
I imagine it would, because on average, most people are liking the movie. You can't really measure how much money it made because people are watching it on HBO Max, not in the theaters. So I don't know how financially they make that decision, but most people seem to like it. I think they'll greenlight a sequel, and I'll be relieved when they do. I think there's potential here. I like the general tone and most things about the world they've established, the general aesthetic and vibe they're going for. Just get a little better at the storytelling next time.
Make the characters a little more believable if you're going to introduce. It'd be cool to introduce more even new characters, but just make me like them more or make me attached to them a little better.
Mm-hmm.
Don't give me I have a wife and kid anymore. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm okay without that.
Yeah. So,
but Yeah, I think you done talking about this movie? Because I think I am too.
I'm done talking. So thanks for watching and listening to us ramble about
Yeah.
this movie forever.
You can watch our stuff on YouTube, and we occasionally stream. There should be links in whatever description that you're listening to this from. So yeah, bells and all that. And catch you next time when we talk about another thing.
Next time.
Later.